Awesome. All right. Hi, guys. Welcome to another installment of our podcast, Are You Aware? I'm here with Angel Prater and Dr. Dean Gray, and my name is Fawn Preston. And how's it going? How's it going, ladies? How
Nice
are
seeing
you?
Great.
Yep, I'm
Yeah.
great. Doing well.
Yeah.
I'm a grandma.
Would you like to share your
again.
news?
Yes.
Yeah.
Little grandbaby boy.
So cute.
1:49 a.m. this morning.
Wow.
Little Blake Michael Cade.
Wow.
6
Absolutely
pounds,
precious.
2 ounces. Little
Adorable.
peanut.
Yes.
19 and a half inches.
19 and a half, 19 and 3/4 inches.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
So
Mother
this is
and
number
baby are doing
4.
well, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, mommy.
Congratulations.
Delivered natural, got that little peanut out, and she's bebopping around the hospital room, and
Mhm.
yeah.
Good for her. and him.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Got a good story.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet. I have grand dogs.
Yeah.
I don't have any
It's not
grandkids
the
yet.
same.
It's not the same.
It's
I'm
not the
so
same.
jealous.
Let's go release some oxytocin.
Yeah. Oh,
Love
I'll be
those
getting my
babies.
hands on that baby. You better believe it. That's happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
Mhm.
Well, do we want to start today with a quote that Angel found?
That sounds great.
Yeah, and I just think
Mhm.
it's awesome. So it says, fill your own cup first. And, today we're talking about work is killing us, finding wellness in the workplace. And so I just think it's so appropriate, fill your own cup first. And so it says, burnouts can create irritation, anger, fatigue, and lack of motivation. Fill your own cup with self-love first, and that will radiate outward. When you're not feeling your best self, you can't be of support to others. Rest, relax, rejuvenate to recharge your own batteries in the best way possible, and make this a priority in your life. Have compassion for yourself and others, and when you connect with love within, you experience harmony. I just think
Mhm.
that's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Charity starts at home.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, it's taken me years, decades to realize that need to flip the script a little bit,
Yeah.
need to go inward in
Yeah.
order to fully support and continue to sustain yourself.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and when you work in the fields that we work
Mhm.
in, it is really hard to fill your own cup first because you're out there busting it. You're helping, you want to do good work. And then you go home and you realize you haven't tended yourself
Yes.
because, when your kids hit you at the door and you're just like, get away from me.
There's nothing left.
I have nothing for you.
There's nothing left. Yes.
Then you realize you
Yes.
haven't filled your own cup first.
Yeah.
Well, in our system, like we talked about the last couple episodes, doesn't set up a platform for their staff to take care of themselves, the wellness.
Yeah.
It's certainly not a priority.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and for the ones that are doing it well, I always get excited, when I hear about initiatives, that organizations or employers are doing that is good work, because they recognize that it is important to keep your staff healthy, to keep them doing the work that they're doing.
Duh.
If you don't want high turnover,
Right.
which is expensive, then you have to implement things that help people tend their wellness.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it's important.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There has been some very good work published by the American Society of Mental Health and Addiction Services around this topic, but it hasn't really stuck, which is such a mystery. This idea of creating a workforce that knows how to take care of itself, a workforce that is trauma informed and trauma aware.
Mhm.
But I'm not sure where why it hasn't been taken up by lots of the major organizations in the country, because as you just said, Fawn, it is challenging to have high turnover in the workplace.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you develop a cohesive team and have a cohesive brand even if your team is constantly turning over?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yes. Well, I think it would be a good idea to talk a little bit about some of the work that Aware Consulting offers to kind of to train the corporations in caring for their employees
Mhm.
and developing a strategy for workforce sustainability and wellness.
Yeah. I think We should definitely talk about that. I'm
Mhm.
wondering if we could do an aware highlight before.
The aware highlight.
We
I
gotta
skipped
highlight
that
some great
part.
workers.
Oh my gosh,
some
I'm
great
so sorry.
people. No, that's
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, I'm down.
So this week we're highlighting Madeline Grace with
Yes.
Grace Healing. Madeline is a young woman who has a journey of wellness, and she worked in the behavioral health field and did quite a bit of peer support and recovery mentor work while going to school. And she started her own company here locally in Oregon called Grace Healing Spaces. And we have provided her links below. And she does quite a few things. Do you want to
Mhm.
talk about some of the things that she
Yeah.
does? Awesome.
Yeah. So this is from Grace Healing Space. A little bit about the work that she's doing, and it's her part of her bio. Often dwelling between physical and non-physical worlds, I am here to channel, heal, and guide. Energy is everything. We are made of energy. I have strong abilities to see, feel, hear, and sense the non-physical. I use these abilities to help others and teach how to work with energy to heal and balance our emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical lives. Depending on the needs of my clients, each energy healing session looks different. Her modalities include energy clearing, chakra balancing and alignment, psychic reading and channeling, inner child work, hypnosis, mediumship, meeting a family of spirit guides and helpers on the other side, new energy activation, shamanic practices, past life regression, and tarot and oracle reading. That's quite a skill set.
Yeah.
Quite a skill set.
She's going to do some Reiki with me next week.
Wow.
So I've been having this kind of block of emotions, and I don't know if it's tied to menopause, my age, the world where we are today. I don't know, but it's been really difficult to feel much.
Mhm.
I'll feel a little bit here, a little spurt there, what have you. And so she's going to do some Reiki with me and see if we can open up whatever's blocking that. And I'm pretty excited about it.
Let us know.
I
Very
know.
exciting.
That's awesome.
I know.
Is this your first Reiki therapy?
I think somebody did some Reiki on our heads back in the day when I used to teach spirit.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah, good
so
for you.
did a little bit of that,
Mhm.
rubbing the energy,
Nice,
and
yeah.
so I'm pretty excited.
That's awesome.
Pow.
Pow! So let's pow it up.
I like
Let's
it.
do it again.
I
Yeah.
like it.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
Well, I think that's super important, when we're talking about, keeping ourselves well, whether it's in the workplace or, just period. I've actually never had Reiki. I have friends that are Reiki practitioners that I probably should have asked a long time ago, because I would love to try it. But I think enveloping all different forms of, wellness and healing is really important. And I think that that's kind of where a lot of corporations are like missing the boat
Mhm.
is that, I think some people kind of look at that stuff as like hooey,
Right.
and it's like, okay, well, if that's what works for people, then that's what works, whether, you feel some kind of way about it, or not. And so really enveloping, lots of different roads to wellness into the workplace, to taper burnout. We especially, in what we do, we deal with a lot of vicarious trauma. We work with people every single day who have an immense amount of trauma. And when they're unloading all of that trauma on you, it's hard not to just let that stick in your body, and take it home with you and, feel it and stress about it. And, eventually you find yourself in a place where it's not just your traumas that are affecting you. It's also all the traumas that you're ingesting from everybody else, in your work. And
Even if
it
you're
takes
not
a toll.
into behavioral health,
Yeah.
the traumas of society today, the COVID, I mean, we can list and list and list, but we don't know who's working alongside of us, right? If we're in a corporation, we may not realize that the person next to us might be houseless, be, having domestic violence in their home, might be having, some other things happening, and but they don't share because society says we don't talk about those things in our roles. And
I'm fine.
I'm
I'm
fine.
fine. Fucked
Mhm.
up, insecure,
Yeah.
neurotic, and emotional, right? That's what I learned fine was early on. And yeah, so I'm
Everything's
fine.
fine.
Everything's fine.
Mhm.
So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean
definitely.
to interrupt.
No, you're good. I just was wrapping my mind around that,
Mhm.
because I've been, working in this field, for 20 years now almost. And I have had to go home and literally just like shuck off a day in like the harshest ways possible sometimes, like crying and sobbing in a pillow and, just really having to get it out of your body because it's exhausting. And, we're all these feelers and, we want to come in and we want to give ourselves to
Heart
people.
feelers.
Yeah. We
Doing
want to
hard
help
work.
people. And we know that what we're doing is important work because we watch people, survive.
Mhm.
We watch people thrive. We watch people get jobs and we watch them get their kids back. And, it's great. It's amazing work. And I would definitely, never say don't do it. But I've definitely had times where I was burnt out. When I moved out here, I was burnt out.
Mhm.
And I literally was looking at like Whole Foods to go get a job in the floral department because in my brain, that was a whole lot less stressful, than working with people who've got some pretty tough stuff,
Mhm.
and I did, decide to
Mhm.
go back to do it because I love it. And, I love the mission. I feel like we're the proof, that recovery is not only possible, it's probable. And it's also hard.
Mhm.
It's exhausting.
And even for people who aren't identifying as having their own tough stuff, right?
Mhm.
I think sometimes people aren't given permission to just acknowledge that tough stuff,
Yeah.
and it gets locked away or stored away somewhere, and then it's they've got to keep their look good going on. I know for me, that's what I had to do for a long time, even though I had my tough stuff and I was open about my story. Because of the role that I was in, I really kept silent of a lot of the struggles that I was going through in those present times
Mhm.
because of my role and because of the title and because of all the people that I was supposed to be leading, and we'll think about our corporations, think about just general population. People don't necessarily seek out supports because it's a sign of weakness or they don't want to be marginalized or oppressed
Mhm.
or looked down on or
The
sick.
stigma.
The
The
stigma.
stigma associated with needing help.
Yeah.
Mhm. Or struggling with anything. Mhm.
So what I like about this Grace healing space is just offering another way of thinking about wellness in the workplace. Like you were saying, Fawn, not everybody really kind of thinks about those types of wellness. Well, mind, body, and spirit, or however you want to define it, balance is important.
Yeah.
I think Samsa said some things about wellness in the workplace or trauma awareness for staff and customers that we were talking about earlier.
Yes, they did. They did.
They did.
Well, so I'm glad you brought that up because I think that that is one of the major issues is that there isn't more trauma awareness in the workplace. If you're looking at all of your systems in a trauma aware way, you're setting up those systems to where there is less burnout, having supervision, for employees to be able to talk about what's going on in their lives at home and at work. I think that's another thing. They silo it to look to work. But it's like, if you've got tough stuff going on at home, it's pretty hard to just, focus on work. And so, we actually, do coaching, with Aware, which has been amazing. We've got corporations all over who are signing up for it right now, different provider agencies. And it's so good because we talk about how to connect together, to learn together, to grow together, and to heal together as a team, to be able to create this community. So whether it's just the team and their supervisor or, the team and their supervisor and, administration, whatever that looks like within the organization, all people are important and all people are valuable. And we don't want to see anybody burn out, from, the people at the top, to wherever in the middle. So that was why we created, our coaching program.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we notice now is that you don't just silo this team's getting these coaching because they have a hot mess or whatever. Really, it's a way to sustain individuals within their current roles and predictability. If they go to another department, that same platform is being used so that there is a sense of safety and a sense of predictability, and it helps sustain when your staff feels supported and they're connecting with other staff, and when they're learning something specific or ongoing learning, professional development, what have you, with each other in a mutual kind of learning, honoring multiple truths kind of way. And then they're growing together as individuals, as team members in personal and professional lives. And then they're putting an emphasis on some accountability of caring for self. We say caring for self very specifically because we use that language of self-care so much that it's not even held on to our subconscious much anymore. And so really turning it around to put like real intention into care for self. And that's as a team, as an individual, and when you go home. And so healing is at the forefront of this process. It's
Yeah.
like create wellness initiatives that allow this platform to kind of create a culture of wellness.
Well, and I think people get confused too about like what self-care is, right? I
Yeah.
think that, we all kind of have this mindset of it's like a candle and a bath and,
Right.
it's like nicey nice stuff. I'm going to go get my nails did, kind of mentality. And it can be that, as well, but it's also the tough stuff too. It's like cleaning out that closet that when you go to get ready for work and you're, throwing stuff behind you and you're all stressed out in the morning and it sets you up for this day of, stress. It's stuff like that too. It's really
Sometimes it's a matter of
assessing.
getting up and brushing your damn teeth,
Yeah.
right? Like when I'm in my really, really, really lows, and especially working from home, like, hello, like I'll dive right into work. I'll dive right into work. I'm still in my jammies. My hair's up in a bun. Like the end of the day is now near. And I'm like, damn, I didn't even brush my damn teeth today, right? Like,
Or
not
eat
even kidding,
something,
or
put
eat
food in
something
your
healthy.
body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Christine? Because you work from home.
Yeah. So sometimes it is difficult to maintain those behaviors, those self-care behaviors when you feel like you're always should be working. Yes, but I think there has been a lot of positive movement in this discussion and the dialogue that we're having around workplace culture. And engagement is another kind of buzzword that goes around. But I think it's time to take it to the next level. I think because it does have that sense of superficiality rather than what we know and what SAMHSA has known for some time, that respect to behavioral health in the workplace and behavioral wellness in the workplace. It really takes a sustained longitudinal curriculum. I mean, it's not just an idea of bring people in and have them talk about it for a day and do a workshop. But what we know is that it requires a longitudinal curriculum, something that is constantly being revisited and tweaked for the people who are actually participating in that training. And that's the kind of thing that we're so good at.
We're amazing at it. We're just amazing at it.
Yeah.
Like, if you need it, you probably need to call us because we don't just talk at you. We're going to train alongside and train with, and people love what we're doing. So there's no ego there, I promise.
No,
it's
not at all.
Straight up.
You're kind of a big deal.
We're kind of big deals. But so are the people that are doing the work. And so how do we like kind of drive that message home? Like, hey, it's okay to love you. Hey, it's okay to take a pause. Hey, it's okay to recognize your own traumas, your own tough stuff that's going on and say, you know what? My lid's about to flip. That self-awareness and care for self is, I think, going to be key to the next to our future of
Mhm.
wellness initiatives within all of our systems, because there's so many people out there that are just really struggling.
Mhm. I wonder if can either of you talk about the role for empathy in the work that you do,
Mhm.
and how you can be empathic, and whether or not you think that's important, but how you can do that without letting it negatively affect your own well-being.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, I think that people who are empaths are pretty fortunate,
Mhm.
because you feel a room,
Mhm.
you feel it versus hearing, the
Mhm.
conversation. But because of that, you feel a lot of other things too. You feel disdain, you feel when people are frustrated, you feel when people are annoyed. And so I think that that is something that, can actually lend to, causing burnout,
Mhm.
when things are getting hard and conversations are tough, or you feel like you need to go to an administrator to have a conversation about processes or procedures and it's not
Mhm.
received well,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
minute that you've had the conversation
The
that it
complainer.
didn't go well. Yeah.
Mhm.
Instantly
The
you're the
complainer.
complainer.
Fawn's complaining about
I've been that person. I can own that. I've definitely been the squeaky wheel, within organizations trying to improve things. And I understand why it's hard to improve things.
Yes.
You know,
Well, we're talking about two different things. There's the individual and then there's the system.
the system.
And my
Mhm.
goodness, is it sometimes challenging to
Mhm.
really
Yeah.
engage and tweak those systems?
Yeah.
Dare I say, very difficult.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and it makes their work harder, right?
Mhm.
And so I get that. I watch that blank look go over an administrator's
Mhm.
face when I go, "Hey, so I just wanted to have a conversation with you about this thing." They're like,
Mhm.
instant stress, because then that
Mhm.
means they have to do more work. And I
Mhm.
understand, the frustration within that. But if you set up the systems in a way that work, there's less of that,
Right.
Yeah, it's
Right.
only temporarily more
Mhm.
work because
Yeah.
you're having. So I see it as building, taking an existing building, and if you have to, um, I mean, if we could all just crush our systems and then rebuild them the way that they need to be, that would be ideal. But obviously, we can't push the pause button on life, right?
Mhm.
And so, one room at a time, one level at a time, and
Mhm.
look at how are we deconstructing some of the areas within that building that are archaic,
Trauma
traumatizing,
inducing.
or trauma
Mhm.
inducing,
Mhm.
or barrier inducing, right?
Mhm.
To allow people to actually thrive in their workplace. So if you are able to kind of do like what we're doing with Tillamook right now on for one particular program, doing a SWOT analysis. What
Yes.
are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? What are the opportunities? What are the threats? And then
And
start looking at,
inclusivity within that, right? Having
yeah,
the whole organization
yes, provide
assess
feedback.
what
Yeah.
that looks like.
Mhm.
And then exploring like how then let's create a plan on moving in that direction, and with the emphasis, I mean, we're doing it right now on equity and inclusion. Include trauma awareness while we're rebuilding some of these systems. Start integrating trauma awareness in this, and trauma wellness in the workplace. I mean, we can incorporate that in what we're already doing.
Right.
And then over time, it's becomes organic in the processes and policies and procedures. It just kind of starts to be built that way, because you have to undo what's already being done,
Mhm.
that's been around forever.
Mhm.
That's making it difficult on everyone. If administrators could take a look at that, and I'm sure that many of them do, and it's overwhelming, but if they could take a look at like what are the pieces that are keeping their staff stuck? Well, you mentioned empathy, right?
Mhm.
Well, if we're teaching individuals who work in a helping field not to self disclose in any way, shape, or form because it's not ethical, yes, I get the importance of being mindful of what we disclose, but giving some permission to be human and
Mhm.
Yeah.
and say how we see, how what we feel, and what we need in this engagement, and create an atmosphere of mutuality, and create an atmosphere of shared responsibility and relationship in this engagement with the people we're serving. That in itself relieves some pressure off
Yeah.
of the person who's the helper, right? gives them an opportunity to learn with people rather than come from this I have to fix this. But they're being driven so much by archaic processes and policies that they're afraid, and they're constantly doing data, right? It's about the data, and it's all quantitative data. It's not qualitative.
Right.
Although their heart wants to show the qualitative and they're seeing it, but they're driven by the quantitative because of the funding.
Yeah.
So some other solutions. So what are some other things that we think?
I think I'd just like to comment on that. I think one of the ways that we can affect a change there is by being kind of very considerate about the outcomes that we're looking at. You know, what are the outcomes? What are we measuring?
Yeah.
You know, is it all about the end goal, or are there ways to look at the process and measure some means of the process going well?
Yeah. Well, and quality of life.
Yes.
You know, quality of life outcomes are so important to me. And, you know, after working in a harm reduction clinic and just seeing how important meeting these, you know, specific outcomes were, it was so hard for me because I would talk to somebody and they'd say, oh, well, you know, they missed their UA and, you know, they didn't show up for this appointment. They were 15 minutes late. And, you know, these were the things that they focused on. But I was working with these people firsthand and I was hearing just the most amazing stories, you know, about them, you know, falling in love with someone who was healthy, you know, and I know that that's not something that anybody's looking at. They're not, you know, looking at that as, you know, a metric, you know, to determine what their recovery looks like. But when I'm having a conversation with somebody over coffee and they're like, wow, I met this really nice guy. And this is the first time I've ever met somebody, you know, who had this, and this. And he tells me I'm beautiful and all these things. And I see that, you know, light inside them going up. That's what I'm looking at.
Is the date the reason they were late for their appointment?
I don't know, but I think it was worth it if you ask me, right? Like sometimes you got to think about what's important.
Yeah, hello.
You know?
Sorry, Doc, I'm a little late.
Yeah.
Had
But
a
like
moment with my man.
relationships with friends and family improving, you know, having conversations that were really hard about traumatic pasts with like their family, you know, mothers and fathers, you know, that they'd never addressed before. And that's all a part of that healing process. And when we talk about, you know, all these different pathways and, you know, you kind of like weaving this, you know, path, all that stuff goes into the healing process because, you know, you can be sober and never have tackled any of the shit that got you unsober to begin with.
Yes.
You know?
Couldn't agree more. Yeah.
So I don't know. I just think that healing, you know, looks very different.
Unsober?
Yeah, I just thought unsober, not sober. Yeah.
No,
Well,
that was
and
awesome. I like that. We're gonna say unsober from now on. Are you sober or unsober?
you're unsober? No.
What does that mean for you?
Yeah. Well, and, you know, we're going to talk about harm reduction next week, you know, and I think that that is a huge part of it too, is that, you know, when you're, you know, on this pathway, there are going to be dips and there are going to be falling down, you know, and there's also going to be points where you're feeling really great, you know, about what's happening in your life. And we really don't have a way other than, you know, some quality of life, you know, metrics to determine that. But I mean, which systems are using that?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And there is actually an awesome recovery collateral scale that is got dozens of questions and it takes some time to implement, but it's pretty great because it does incorporate a lot of these this holistic approach to from housing to access to insurance to ride and job security and
social determinants of health,
all
right?
of those things.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know.
Wait a minute.
I know. Who did you
Who
just
knew?
make that up? Yeah. So you know, but it's time consuming. And
Yeah.
you know, when you have a 15-minute visit in some cases for
That's ridiculous.
these very complicated folks, members of the community who really need help, and you know, feel mostly quite anxious if they're waiting for a prescription medicine that they're dependent on.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's not much of the time gets dedicated to really rounding out the holistic nature of the work that they're doing to maintain their lifestyle.
And no wonder the staff is burning out.
Yeah.
Well, no shit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Let's like rethink this, right?
Mhm.
Let's rethink it from A to Z. That's why our staff is burning out, because they're burned out because we're on a broken system.
Yeah.
They're burnt out because we put up barriers. They're burnt out because their heart work. They come into this line of work because they want to help people and they want to do awesome, cool stuff. But then they get tied to this desk and they're like 15-minute here, 15-minute there, next patient, next patient, next patient.
Mhm.
And then they're just like, oh shit, I can't even have time to incorporate any Reiki into this equation. I don't have time to even have a dialogue with an individual to like explore anything deeper than what's on the surface, what they came here for. Why are we so focused on problems rather than creating opportunities?
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So what are some other potential opportunities?
I love the idea of administration looking at, their entire like employee body for ideas, just really putting it out there and being like, listen, like we care about you guys. We want to keep you well. Like, what does that look like for you? Polling the staff and putting cool things into place, that are team building and, things that really help people to connect with other people. Because I think that that's a huge part of it too, is like the lack of support, in a lot of these roles. Like you were saying, Angel, at your last organization, that you felt like, when you weren't feeling great, that you couldn't really disclose that. I think a lot of us feel like that because it's weakness, that our brains say that that's us being weak. If we're,
which is a
associated with
trauma
it, and it's
trauma response also.
considered unprofessional.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that's the last thing we want, because that pays our bills.
Right.
We don't want to rock the boat at our job that pays our bills. We don't want to be the person who's, telling people all of our business, and
we don't want to be the one to let down our team.
Don't want to let down your team.
Don't want to let down your team. You're supposed to be there and hold it together.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
So I was going to say that's part of this ability, that inability to not be at work is one of the huge barriers to, I think, people being able to take care of themselves, that feeling that you can't ever miss no matter what is going on. And it does seem like it permeates almost every work culture. No matter what you do or where you work, there is this idea that there's just barely enough staffing to keep things running.
Yeah.
And if you don't come in, then you're really, that's a
letting them
disservice
down.
to your team. Yeah, because then they're going to have to do all of this extra work. And it's really unfortunate, because people should be able to take time off. I mean, it's why people end up cashing in huge caches of PTO, because they were never able to take any time off.
Yeah.
When I left,
never able to take any time off.
When I left last year, I walked away from about $5,000 worth of
unused
sick time that I couldn't cash out because we didn't have PTO. We had vacation and sick time. So I was able to cash out my vacation time and not the sick time. And it really hit home when, I was finally in Arizona and kind of just decompressing the whole world, the way it had been and all the things that had been going on. And I was thinking, damn, why didn't I just go on FMLA, right? Well, because I was already in a place of such distress that I couldn't even process and think of that as an option, because all I knew is I needed to do something different, because I was having those seizures, all the things, and I just needed to go. And when I got to Arizona, I started driving Uber, because it was not having anything to do with this line of work.
Until you started supporting every single person in the Uber.
It's like they started just being an empath, right? They just start talking about their traumas, and I got a 5-star rating, but it got me thinking, and it got Fawn and I talking about that, and like the need to seriously educate all people across all worker types around their own wellness, around trauma awareness, and
around using FMLA.
oh my
I
gosh,
bring it up all the time.
pretty
and
bad. I was the
and
executive director, and I signed off on FMLA numerous times.
I often offer to and to fill that out for people, and they're like, "Really? I don't know." And I'm like, "You're facing a life-threatening medical condition here. Life-threatening medical.
Use it. That's why it's there.
Not
That's why
now,
it's there.
when? What other reason
Yeah.
would you have to? Yes, and I mean, your wellness is important.
Yeah.
And I think you can find some folks who don't really want to get involved with filling out the paperwork. But I would say if you're a provider, it really is quite straightforward. I mean, I think just like sort of doing your taxes, once you get into it, you're like, oh gosh, okay.
This isn't so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a thorn in your side, but doable.
I was in, I believe, because my lid was flipped. We've talked about Dr. Dan Siegel. My lid was flipped for so long, and I was in survival mode, and I was trying to keep it together for the organization, for the team, for my family, you know, my kids going through a bunch of stuff, and then COVID, all the things that I got into flight mode. I was
like, I just gotta get out of here.
6 months notice, right? Like I had given 6 months notice, plenty of notice, but I should have went on FMLA. I was not well. And then so you just roll out and then you're like, oh shit.
Now
what do I do? Right?
Shoulda, woulda.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, and I think with everything that's happened over the last couple of years with COVID, I think that people are realizing that their lives can be less stressful. Not tackling Portland traffic every day was something that I noticed.
Traffic, wherever our listeners are from.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah. That was one of the things that, right away, I mean, I, worked consistently, through COVID for a really long time, but there was a time like right there in the beginning where everybody was kind of at home and we just had like a skeleton crew, on site, and people are paying like ridiculous amounts of money for daycare. So you're paying a ridiculous amount of money for daycare. You're driving, an hour to work, an hour and a half sometimes home every day. I think that people coming out of this might actually be a little bit more selective about what they choose in the future, for those reasons. Because yes, there are struggles with like being at home, with, depression and, being not, not connected with others and stuff like that. But there are also some benefits to working from home. And so I'm seeing that across the board. Like when I help folks try to find employment, there are a whole lot more jobs at home that you can do now that you never could, in the past.
I think we'll find a large part of the people who have left the workforce will not be returning to the office. Yes, I think corporations, it was just kind of a thing. If I can't see what you're doing, then how do I know you're really working?
Right.
I think that was archaic. Yes. People have started to get rid of that way of thinking, thank goodness. And hopefully, I think there's been a groundswell of support for being more flexible with respect to how you meet your staff and employees where they are and what they need to perform at the top level at work and have a successful home life and find that work-life balance. Yes, I think that is one thing that we've surely gained from this experience of the pandemic is being more open about what a work-life balance might look like.
Yeah, instead of living to work, right? Because I know that's many years of my life living to work.
I think they call it the American dream.
Yeah, the American dream, live to work. Hey, right? And and then on the other end of the spectrum, the people who really, really need
in-person
humans, right? Need touch, need the energy. So having options for people to be able to do that. Like some of the people we're training and coaching with, some are like, nope, got to be online. And I'm like, no, I just want to pull out all my hair. But then the gratitude of that, like I can do that from Arizona, right? But then, like we're going to be doing the Tillamook training here in February, April, wherever,
Mhm.
whenever we're doing it. And they were really excited. It's going to be in
want it
person
in
because they haven't
person.
had anything in person like that for
Well,
a
we're
long
kind
time.
of awesome in person.
Well, it's all
Like, we
about the
love the
anime,
in-person
we gotta
vibe,
do some
yo.
dancing.
Yeah,
and gotta get the
totally.
energy going. Can't just look at a screen, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so
It helps to
feels
people to
different.
be more engaged,
Mhm.
just being in
Mhm.
person, getting that connection with
Mhm.
people, learning more about them in person. It is really, really nice. We
There's
definitely love
energy
it.
to a
There's some
group. There's
energy.
energy. Yeah, you feed
Yeah.
off of each other.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, and when you're facilitating anything, at least for me, I'm so hyper vigilant to my surroundings, and I feel the energy so immensely when we're in that flow that I could see somebody over here with something that just popped up, and I might be looking over here, and then I'm able to kind of go back and go, oh, what was that? Or what were you going to say? Or did you have something? Because I could feel it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so it's
Yep.
definitely a dance. But how do organizations find that balance? How do they provide, um, opportunities? Why do we always focus on what we don't want rather than look and get excited and create what we do want? So if we have vacation time, we have sick time, we have PTO. My business brain says everybody should just have PTO
Yep.
and stop
Me too.
dictating what the hell you think people need and should.
Mhm.
Now, on the other end of the administrative part of that, it can be very costly in the long term because the PTO, if somebody leaves, they cash it out
Mhm.
and you have to pay it all out, what have you, right? Whereas they make money when you can't cash out your sick time.
Right.
And so how do we, like, instead of calling something sick time, if you have to have this, maybe you have wellness time
Right.
Mhm.
rather than sick time. Again, we're focusing on what we don't want is that to be sick rather than we do want you to feel well. We want you to stay in your role or in the company and sustain you. So let's put an emphasis on wellness.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then, oh, by the way, we also offer all these really cool like groups or opportunities
Professional
for
development.
professional development.
When you
or-
feel like you're growing and when you feel like you're in a role and you're doing a good job, so that's where I think the supervision comes into place, right? Is that you're always assessing how you're doing and you're in communication with your supervisor, you're in communication with your team, so you're always feeling connected in that regard, and you're always getting that positive reinforcement that you're doing well. And if you're not, if something's going awry, then you catch it right away, you have a conversation about it, and then you start moving toward again. So I think that supervision is definitely super important in this whole system of things. And then professional development. And so Unlimited Alternatives, is the organization that I ran in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And when we would talk about professional development there, I was always super neutral in the regard of like whether they stayed or they left. Like, yes, we love you. We want you to stay. You're super valuable to the team. But if this is just a step up to go do something else that you love and that you're excited about, you have a bigger goal. I don't ever want you to feel like you can't say that to me.
Right.
I want you to say,
Don't feel
look,
afraid.
Fawn, I love this job, but eventually I would like to do this. And then it was like, oh, okay, good to know. So for now, let's work on these things because this is going to make you great here. And you're going to also be able to add these things to your resume for later when you move on to something bigger. And so there was never a weirdness. They always were super open with me about it. And even like, when they'd start coming to the end of like, oh, hey, by the way, I probably won't be here, past the month. Okay, let's talk about that, because it was always about collaborating and communicating with them and letting them know we think you're valuable and we want good things for you, even if it's not here.
Right.
And sometimes the role itself could be integrated into the existing organization.
Yeah.
Create jobs for people. Sorry.
There you go.
So sorry. Sometimes the role itself, like say somebody wants, it's a very specific role that they want to move to, but there isn't an opportunity for it in that organization. So retain them, build them up, find a way to make it fit in that company, in that organization, and let them create their own path. That's the strength in an organization is it's the buy-in from the people who work there. And if you can, if somebody wants to do media, but there's no media happening, maybe you outsource that work or something, then utilize that as an opportunity to negotiate how you could support them to get to what, A to Z. Like if you're working in behavioral health, some organizations actually have tuition reimbursement, and that tuition reimbursement, say you're going to get your MSW. I was encouraged like forever, 9 years at CCS, to go back to school and do X, and it could be applied to the organization. And then I just give them, 5 years of my life or whatever it was. But the likelihood I would have retired there, right? But I didn't want that. But they have those sorts of things. So why not do that? Think outside the box, people. Like, how do we keep people excited to come to work, excited for the mission, and help them stick around?
By focusing on helping them take care of themselves.
Wellness in the workplace.
Yep.
Well, oh, that just sounded like a jingle. What was that?
I don't know.
Oh, I just
In the
dang it. I just
workplace.
lost it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, absolutely. I think that it's important that you look at it from all different angles, when you're talking about, policies and procedures and processes that are stringent, and that people have a hard time meeting, like metrics and outcomes. What does that look like? Like, how do we revamp that to make it to where our people aren't burning out because they're not meeting their metrics? If lots of people aren't meeting the metrics, something's wrong with the metrics.
And get rid of the leadership that are mean.
Yeah.
Because there's
Absolutely.
mean-ass leadership out there that are really toxic. So maybe before we get rid of them, we have to assess the why they are the way they are.
Yeah.
Because they might just be burnt out.
Yeah.
They might have had, a previous leader that taught them to be that way. Maybe they got some trauma stuff going on, and everybody's looking at the surface. Oh, he's a dick. Oh, she's this, that, and the other. But what's happening underneath? Providing that opportunity. And then if there is a way to rectify or to undo some of the learning, because we've gotten to some roots, we can build leadership into being more supportive rather than toxic.
Yeah.
Toxicity, that word, in the workplace is a real thing.
Well, and there's difference between management and leadership.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that that's somewhere where people get confused as well. Like a leader creates other leaders.
Yes. Right. Thank you.
A manager keeps themselves where they're at.
Yes.
And so if you're creating leadership amongst all the ranks, what is that doing for your organization? An organization full of leaders who are nurturing other people, who are, care about the people and the mission of the organization. It just creates this like symbiotic system, this beautiful system of, keeping people well and keeping the business running all at the same time.
Right. Oh, I really like that.
Yeah. Protecting the health and wealth of your organization.
Hello.
Yeah.
There's a lot of managers out there. Nobody wants to be managed. Well, some people like to be managed, but leaders is the key, right?
Yeah.
Building other leaders.
Yeah. Promoting growth. Yeah.
Having your if you are a hierarchy kind of organization, having people at the, entry level position being mentored by somebody who's been at the entry level position or what have you. The mentorship goes and providing a platform for people to feel empowered, and then a platform for people to grow within the organization is vital. Is vital to somebody's excitement and why they're there.
Yeah, people have opinions, right? Like if you're doing this work, you see gaps and barriers in the system. So it's listening to the people who are doing the work and then creating the processes that are conducive to the people doing the work.
Yeah.
So,
I really like that.
Yeah. Always assessing.
I told a CEO one time, if we took about 2% of the administrator's salary and filtered it down to the people on the front lines of doing this role, you wouldn't have such a deficit in your budget, because they were about $2 million in the red constantly. And And I said, if you pay them a livable wage and then you provide them opportunity to move forward and you listen to them, what works, what doesn't work, etc., and you reinvest the money that you're currently spending on retraining, rehiring, and this cycle, this loop that's happening of staff turnover, you might keep people around and actually get out of the red in a matter of 2 years.
Mhm.
She didn't like that.
No. But I do think generally we're on the precipice of big changes.
Yeah.
Big changes. And
It's about to go down.
I think
Christine.
so. I think
Yeah.
it is. I think it is. I think people are ready and they get it. And this experience of working from home and COVID and recognizing how much is at stake, generally speaking, with this work-life balance. And companies too are beginning to understand that it can't be constant turnover. And we really
and ask the question, why?
Why?
Why do
Yeah.
we have
Why?
constant turnover?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there's the
Yeah.
word wellness.
Wellness.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. What is it about the way we are working that is making us sick?
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Definitely. I actually just had a conversation with somebody before I came in here who her partner is a recruiter for like a personnel service. And he was actually complaining about not being able to get a lot of people who were interested in working in these roles. And that says something too, right? Like people who don't have jobs right now are turning down jobs
Right.
because of work culture
Yeah.
and what it looks like, and so the only way that we're going to be able to re-spark what's happening out there regarding employment is by offering people a better work environment than somewhere else.
Right.
I just went through Panda Express the other day and it says
Were they closed?
no, but their food anyway, whatever. And it said we pay up to $21 an hour. And I'm like, good
start
for you.
Yeah,
You're
good start.
starting to pay people
a livable wage. Yep. Give them insurance benefits that matter. We were just talking about that the other day. If you don't have good benefits, you're not going to tend to your physical health,
Right.
Because nobody wants to have to drop, fat amounts of money just to
can't
go to the
afford
doctor. You
that.
can't afford it.
And well, let's be honest, because we know that our healthcare system, it's really not set up to maintain wellness and it's not set up to maintain preventive care. I would say even when you even when you have health insurance, there's a deductible, and that deductible really is can be used to cover your preventive care, and it's like, well, wait a minute, why wouldn't you pay for the preventive care?
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
A crown
And
is
so-
$1,000
Yeah.
on some
Yes.
of your deductible.
But they'll take
at
that
some
tooth
point.
out.
They'll
They'll
take that
tooth out in a minute and sell you a $10,000 implant.
They try to sell that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I had a tooth
Mhm.
pulled and that was
Mhm.
horrific. Like, I'm like, I looked at this doctor and said, oh my God, I don't ever want to have to do that again. And he's like, oh, but for $49.99, $4,999, you can have something put right back in there. I'm like, it's in the back. Why do I need that? I am not giving you $5,000 to put a tooth in there that I don't need. But yeah,
it's preventive.
would have
care.
been nice to have my real tooth.
So, and I do think it's now not only is it the cost to society, the cost to the individual of people not getting the preventive care they need, and we know that probably three of the top 5 causes of death in the U.S. are all preventable, related to preventable illness. So, where was I going with that? I think we were thinking, all right, so insurance companies are understanding now that we really do need to keep people well, because when we do start to come down with these chronic medical problems that are largely related to our unhealthy lifestyles, we end up costing the system a lot of money. Anything from the direct cost of healthcare to lost productivity by not being able to work. Yeah. So I
Mhm.
think, as we were saying earlier, this is, I think there's been a groundswell of support for these ideas. And it's just a really great time to really focus on this approach to wellness in the workplace.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. So I just kind of wanted to bring it back a little bit to trauma awareness, because one of the things that I think is super frustrating, and I don't think people even realize, is there's all of these different, things that you can do as far as, implementing policies that are, trauma aware. So something that I heard last week, a friend of mine, something happened at work and the administrator wanted to chat with her. And so the administrator sent an email that just said, "Hey, can I see you at 9 a.m.?"
Mhm. Oh.
And so anybody who hears that, right, who doesn't know anything about trauma would be like, "And why is that a problem?" Right? But in the world of somebody who has trauma, that's a terrifying thing,
Mhm.
to get an email that's just like, "I would like to see you at 9 a.m." Because your brain does all the things, right?
Right.
Like, am I in trouble?
Mhm.
Did I do something wrong? Am I
Will
going to
get
get
You
fired?
got that itty bitty shitty committee screaming at you, and the fear just
Totally.
comes
Mhm.
over you. Yeah.
Totally. And so
Mhm.
something as simple as understanding that sending an email like that, it can change everything.
Mhm.
It can change how you interact with your, employees. It can change everything. And so that's why I think trauma awareness specifically is so important to this component as far as, wellness in the workplace, because them simply knowing that and sending a different kind of email, "Hey, can I see you at 9 a.m.? I wanted to discuss this, this, and this." Even asking somebody, especially if it's a hard
Mhm.
situation, "Did you want somebody there to support you?
Mhm.
Would you
Mhm.
like to invite your supervisor? Would you like to invite a friend?" Like, there are so many things that they could be doing to make it a trauma aware workplace, but they don't know because
Yeah.
they don't have their own trauma. And maybe they
Right.
do have their own trauma.
Everybody has their own trauma.
Yeah,
Everybody has
everybody
their own
has their own trauma.
trauma,
Everybody's all traumatized. We need to just love on everybody.
but they don't understand that
Mhm.
that is a huge part of what stresses us out and
Mhm.
burns us out,
Mhm.
and forces us to find other employment, because we're constantly activated. That amygdala,
Mhm.
is in activation. And then, other things deteriorate because of the stress that you're feeling, because of the
Mhm.
interaction.
Mhm.
And so I think
And it
trauma
could be
awareness is
something really
important.
simple. I
Hmm.
mean, can we meet at 9 a.m.? That was a absolute scenario with my previous back in the day supervisor, and I would instantly be afraid. And
Mhm.
so I finally told her. I said, "Did I do something wrong?" And we're just texting. She's like, "No, why?" And I said, "Because you just said this," and she was like, the sweetest person on the planet. She wasn't even realizing like this brought up so much fear. Like, don't say 9 a.m. 4 days from now, because for the next 4 days, I'm going to be in my head
Hmm.
about what the hell did I do
It's
wrong.
happened to all of us.
And yeah, and
Yep.
so really embracing the internal awareness that you need to have as humans when you're in a position of power with someone else.
Mhm.
We're running to the end, so this has been great
Yeah,
discussion.
I think
Yeah.
so. Yes.
Let us come to your organization and help you incorporate some trauma aware training and coaching. We would love to be able to support y'all. And remember, connect, learn, grow, and heal. Thank you for spending time with us. Please join us again next week with our topic is going to be harm reduction. Whose life is it anyway? Find us on platforms like share and subscribe. Aware, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Are you aware? Click the link below.
Find us there. Bye, guys.
Bye. That